Season 1 of 2025. Let's see what sort of adventures that it has in store. And Esports. Way through the corner. That wasn't the crest doing him dirty.
There right off the beginning is something you probably want to monopolize on right away, honestly, in a rain race.
Involved in that as well. Doden, I believe, is a newer racer. Oh, that's a big crash coming out of the corner. Renaissance mentioning all of those racers that... We saw him have that off-track moment not terribly long ago, and he has come back from a And oh my god, that's a big wreck coming out of turn number 4. Multiple cars around. A little bit of contact going to Chris Montgomery as well. I saw that car kind of jerk around a little bit through that corner, but you could see Montgomery maybe got sized up a move on Colacio as Colacio may try and get a move on. That is 5-6 cars covered by just about nothing on this racetrack. Nearly 4 wide through the corner. Look at Colacio going in way deep into turn 5. He's going to lose out on that spot on Chris Montgomery and Colacio. Too long contact being... Weekly Formula Vee Weekend Warriors crash them up wreckfest at the checkered flag. May God have mercy on both Josh and I's graphics cards because the event dust. Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Slow Motion Broadcasting. Welcome back to the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. This is round number 6 of the season, coming to you today from Donington Park. My name is Maunz, and alongside me, working the comms and the cams, is Joshua Wilkie. Today, we bring the first half of this season to a close, and what a season it has been thus far. Photo finishes, brilliant racing, and enough goofy moments to make sure there hasn't been a single dull moment thus far. This season is set to be a good one, and this race is set to continue on that streak. It may not seem like much, but a good result in this race here today could really set a good tone for the second half of the season that lies ahead. So with that being said, Josh, I have a feeling that we're in for a pressure cooker of a race today.
Yeah, I think you're right, Ron. We're sort of reaching that point in the season here where perhaps championship points and stuff are starting to look a little bit more real to some of these drivers, and you know, this is going to be a pretty fast, aggressive track here today for these cars. A little bit different than maybe we've been to in the last little bit. So I'm expecting a pretty good race today around what is probably one of my favorite tracks on the service, honestly, Ron. We were kind of just speaking in the run-up about this track and how cursed the one layout is there with the chicane at the end, or sorry, the hairpin at the end, and this just happens to not be that layout. This is the better layout, the one that I like, the one that you like, hopefully the one that the drivers like, and I think we're going to have a pretty good race on it today.
Yeah, I think there's going to be an absolute barn burner of a race here at Donington Park. And while we're still in this practice session, let's give you a quick little lap guide around this circuit. Donington Park, historic in nature, has a whole lot of history baked into it. Open since back in 1920s, I believe. And here's the lap guide. Heading down now into turn number 1. Got a nice ride on board lap with Urmani. Currently finds himself 5th in this practice session. That's turn number 1 of Redgate that we just saw him go through right there. Probably a premier overtaking opportunity around this track, but not the most premier one. And downhill now into turn number 2 through Craner curves of 3 right now. This is the old hairpin of turn number 4, which strangely enough, in the entire time in which this track has existed, it's always been that way. It used to just be called the hairpin instead of the old hairpin. Not really sure. The UK, I thought Americans were bad at Americans are bad at numbering track corner numbers, and it seems like the UK race fans are not very good at naming them. That's gonna come back to bite me in the butt. We just saw Urmani go through turn number 7 a couple of moments ago, heading off now up the hill, over the hill into turn number 8 of this is a pronunciation that I'm not sure I will be able to get right in my entire time doing broadcasting. Coppice, I think would be the correct term. Coppice. I don't know why it sounds like some sort of ice cream dish, but either way, it's a very tasty corner, and this is a tasty chicane, certainly, as Josh mentioned a couple of moments ago, a better way to bring this lap to a close than the international layout with that absolutely horrendous hairpin. That final chicane, though, going to be the premier overtaking opportunity for these racers. Want to get a move done heading off to that checkered flag? That will be the premier spot, and that is a lap of Donington Park.
Yeah, pretty awesome lap around here on it. You know, I've been practicing a little bit for the FF this weekend, which is actually tomorrow, I believe. And I just love this place. It flows so nicely, and it's just a great track to race around. And I've never really had any experience here in a V, but I'm assuming, you know, it's pretty similar there as well. Even though there's, the speed's not quite as much, it's still very flowing and very fast, and I have a feeling a good portion of the lap's probably flat out too.
Yeah, in these Formula V's, spending a lot of this lap bending the floor pan in your race car to try and get the most amount of speed that you possibly can. It's a rather peculiar track in terms of the reference, in reference to the rest of the season schedule, I should say. Just off the back of Thruxton 1 week ago, holy cow, what a race that was. Ethan Orr, there we go, second time's a charm with that first name pronunciation. But Ethan Orr, the Spec 2 man, was able to grab the overall win last time out at Thruxton. He picked Guido Marzuki, who won his first ever Spec 1 race 1 week ago, with York Monty winning it in the Masters class after a rather heartbreaking collision with himself and Jason Green, neither of whom ended up making it to the checkered flag as the winner. But that was how things went at Thruxton 1 week ago. 5 races on the board. I think as we're still in this practice session, should probably take a quick look at the championship point standings, because been a pretty wild season, as I've talked about. Lots of brilliant photo finishes, and even in the Spec 1 category, where we have seen a bit of dominance from the man, the myth, legend, Mr. Tortolo. He was not here last time out at Thruxton, so that's allowed Jason Green to grab that championship lead in the Spec 1 category. He leads in the 160 car with 438 points on the board. Have to go a little bit far back to find Tortolo, and then you have to go very far back to find Nate Coliseo. He already has a win this season. That coming at Lime Rock, the second round of this championship, but he's still in third. And I wouldn't say he's a championship favorite, but if the two in front of him blow up and have a terrible second half of the season, who knows, Nate Coliseo may be able to capitalize. He's a nice, comfortable cushion, so to speak, of his own, as you have to go back doing the math in my head, 31 points to find Suleiman Khan and Jeff Jacobson, who ran out to top 5, both of which are tied at 270 points. Gonna move on now to Spec 2, and it's been 2 drivers taking the checkered flag for this season, but considering that's looking rather odd compared to what you'd usually expect, considering that Ethan Orr has 2 wins and Andrew Love has 2 wins as well. Neither of them are in the top 5. Instead, it's the perennial Spec 2 contender here in the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors, Michelle Lynn, holding on to the championship lead as it stands currently. Travis Rail in second, Dan Szynski rounding out your top 3 in the Spec 2 category. Quite interesting that Love, who already has 3 wins thus far this season, is slotted down in 6th, and Ethan Orr all the way down in 10th. Should be noted, Orr, I'm pretty sure, quickest in this practice session that we're in right now. So Orr proving himself to be a very, very quick driver. Gonna take a quick look at the Masters category, where it's been pretty much a story of dominance from York Monty thus far this season. He has 3 checkered flags in the Masters category. He's nearly won 2 races overall, but he leads it in the Masters class, 409 points on the board. Jim Gerster slotted in P2 at 334, with Nick Tullo running out your top 3 in the Masters class. But honestly, of all that, Josh, I'm a little bit shocked that Spec 2 is laid out the way it is.
That's another one of those situations, where as long as you're there kind of plugging away on the season, and, you don't have to get first every race. As long as you're there and you're getting those top 5, maybe top 3s every once in a while, and maybe the occasional win, then, you have a chance to take the championship by the end of the season. And that's exactly what's going on here. So consistency pays off for sure, Ron.
Consistency certainly benefiting a lot of these racers as it stands at the moment. Had some brief technical issues there a few moments ago, so if the video was looking a little bit crunchy, we stuck it in the microwave for a little bit too long. But we're back here and ready to get things up and rolling from the rest of this broadcast. Still have about a minute and a half left to go in this practice session, so we should probably talk about how things are looking at the moment in this practice session. Chris Doden currently slotted at the front, a Spec 2 man, completing an all Spec 2 top 2 as it stands at the moment. Lots of 2s there in the span of about 2 sentences. See what I did there? That was terrible. I apologize. Chris Doden, though, in the 204 car. Lots of 2s going on here, right in front of Ethan Orr, the Spec 2 driver, slotted in P2 in the 222 car. Holy cow. Oof. But those 2 at the front, I swear to God, I'm not doing this intentionally anymore. Those 2 drivers at the front of this field, proving that in a series as competitive as the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors series, don't need to be a Spec 1 driver to contend for those overall wins, because we see this week after week, race after race, drivers in either the Masters category or the Spec 2 proving themselves to be legitimate contenders for the overall checkered flag.
Yeah, and that's just great to see. It generally means people are finding some pace out there. Maybe Ethan started at the beginning of the season in this car, wasn't really sure how well he was going to perform in it, or maybe just rating wise, he's not necessarily up to speed, or thinks he's not, with the rest of the drivers. And well, sure enough, he is, and now he's punching pretty high above his weight here, I'd say, for 2 races in a row. So, we don't usually promote people during mid-season, and we probably won't with Ethan this season as well. But it looks like perhaps maybe by next season at least, he will be in the S1 category. If not, he's definitely doing very well at the moment.
And let's see if we can continue on the streak of having back-to-back Spec 2 winners overall in this series. That would be the first time that has happened in any Weekend Warriors series in my entire time covering the Weekend Warriors world, which dates back to quite a long ways. Occasionally throughout the seasons, whether it be in the Formula V's, the Formula Fords, or the Spec Racer Fords, all of which you can catch every single weekend here on SMB. But you don't see that often. You usually think, yeah, Spec 1 drivers, the highest I-rated of the drivers in this series, they're usually the ones contending for those wins. But no, you get the Masters drivers and you get the Spec 2 drivers that will occasionally give us a little bit of an upset result and upset some Spec 1 drivers in the process. So who knows? We may end up seeing a driver have a pretty good race here today and stun the Weekend Warriors world. But at the moment, these drivers looking to set in as stunner of qualifying sessions as they possibly can. This qualifying session now underway. Friendly reminder to anyone who hasn't tuned into the series before, 15 minutes is the length of this qualifying session, with 4 laps for these drivers to get the job done. A solo qualifying session, so these drivers don't have to worry about traffic. Instead, they just have to worry about executing the best times that they possibly can. And should be noted again as well that considering it is solo and these drivers won't be benefiting from the draft, gonna see some slower times in this qualifying session than we saw in practice earlier on, and we'll see in this race coming up. But still qualifying, pretty good basis to see who's going to be the heavy hitters all throughout tonight's race.
Yeah, I'd like to see, with the solo qualifying, I'm used to the FFs and the SRFs and the other Weekend Warrior series, and we do open qualifying there. So you're really having to jockey for position, and you really, you honestly have to get your shoulders out, almost even more sometimes than in the race itself, to just get a proper lap time in. You need to get in behind somebody. You've got to find sort of a draft buddy if you really want to be at the pointy end. And these solo sessions just don't have that element at all to them, which provides sort of another element, really, at the end of the day, is that you are solo, and there is no chance that you're going to catch a sneaky little draft, and you have to put all of that time out on your own. It's got to be your raw pace, and that really kind of levels the playing field a little bit, or at least it gives us, Ron, a good idea maybe who has put the most laps in and is going to be, the sort of the fastest all on their own. And that doesn't always mean something in a race, especially around somewhere like here where there's some draft, but maybe not as much as other places. But it is going to matter a little bit for sure. If you're out there and you're getting the consistency down and you're putting those fast laps and you can do it solo, that's a pretty strong indication that you're going to be a strong at this track.
And these drivers looking to prove that they have the muscles to muscle these cars around this rather short racetrack. Only 1.96 miles. There we go. Second tries the charm, but just a click under 2 miles around this 10-turn road course. And it's got to be a unique ride compared to all the tracks that we have throughout this entire season. And that's certainly going to be a fun one at the same time. So let's see how these drivers are going to do. First time of asking for this qualifying session, and I believe one of the first who to press the line will be this man Jason Green. And let's see what time he sets. Green, of course, already has a couple of checkered flags this season. He has been very fast all season long, as he usually is. He's the Weekend Warriors. He's the maestro, so to speak, the racing coach connoisseur, as he is on the Racing Line podcast, which you can catch every single Tuesday night over on the Ray Esports YouTube channel. But Jason Green, proving himself to be the Pied Piper in this qualifying session, finds himself on the provisional pole.
Yeah, not super duper surprising there, like you were saying before. A bit of a tactician, Jason, and this being the first lap out there as well. We're getting a little bit acclimatized, and once again, kind of definitely at the tip or at the pointy end of the spear there for Jason, and that's pretty common, I would say. He puts the time in, and he's very consistent out there, and at least around the first lap here, I'm expecting him to kind of be the first guy. We'll see maybe if Ethan Orr here or perhaps Antonio Reese can find a little bit of pace out here in the next couple laps and see if they can't find a little more. But man, that was a pretty good lap from Jason there. He's more than a few tenths ahead at the moment.
And let's see how it's going to shake out as these qualifying laps continue to get put on the board. Looking at Ethan Orr right now, finding himself P2 in that 222 car, about not 2/10, it's about 4/10 of a second behind Jason Green, but still a little bit of a cushion to have, and let's see how these drivers do second time of asking in this qualifying session. I will say, as we're riding on board with Ethan Orr, I'm going to give a slightly controversial opinion here, considering that Ethan Orr in the past 2 races has just kicked on the hyperjets in terms of his speed in this series. There may be some people potentially bargaining the series admins to pop him up to Spec 1. Josh, I feel like you can attest to this, considering you're the reigning Spec 2 champion in the Formula Fords and Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warrior Series, respectively. This is definitely a controversial opinion, but I feel like I feel like it'd be a little bit harsh to drag Ethan Orr up to the Spec 1 category, considering a couple of very good results as a Spec 2 driver. Maybe that's controversial to say, but I feel like when it comes to mid-season class swapperoos, they always leave a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. So I'm kind of hoping that Ethan Orr doesn't have that befall him.
Imagine that's most likely not going to be the case, Ron, and we don't usually move people up, mid-season, and exactly for that reason. It's just not really fair. You've put the time in, and you might be winning that series, and then you just have it all taken away to move up to the next category. So that's not something I don't think that will happen. I can say from experience here that I did pretty good in the S2 category. I'm not really sure I'm nearly as good enough to be in S1, if I'm honest. I think maybe there could be a little restructuring going on there, and we could kind of bolster up the S2 class a little bit more. We get some of those S1 drivers perhaps down to S2 and keep some of the really elite S1 drivers up at the tip of the spear there for the other classes. But the V's being a little bit different, we're still kind of shaking out around here, and this should be a pretty good, interesting season to sort of be able to gauge that and exactly what it is we're going to do about that. And I know that there is some talk and some work going on in the background here with the classes, and perhaps some more work being put together there to kind of even out the classes a little bit, so those classes are a little bit more robust, and it's not the same 4 or 5 guys every weekend and nobody else has a chance kind of thing. But yeah, as far as the classes go, pretty unique around here with the Ray Esports Weekend Warriors, and that you're fighting everybody all the time, and the classes, you're always fighting for points and stuff. I really enjoy it personally, but as far as moving mid-season, I'm not a big fan either, Ron.
And hopefully that isn't the fate that befalls Ethan Orr at any point throughout Season 1 of 2025 here from the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. But he's proving that this series ever so competitive. We'll note in terms of the class discussion to those who haven't tuned into the series thus far this season, you can see the 3 classes, and this is the first time we've had 3 classes here in the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. The Masters class, a new addition here to the series, as we had Spec 2 and Spec 1 in previous seasons, but it's a Spec 2 man and P1 right now as Ethan Orr jumps up to the provisional pole to 122.568. That's a very good lap time, jumping in front of Jason Green, who's only 0.02 of a second behind. Go back to Chris Doden, currently running at your top 3, and Chris Montgomery, who was previously a Spec 2 racer in this series, currently slotted in 4th at the moment in the 33 car. And looking through, Antonio Reese holds onto the pole at the moment in Masters, with Jim Brewster right behind. Practically nothing again between those 2 cars, only 100th of a second between them. Really close stuff. Nate Colascio jumping up to P3 right now in the number 8 car. He's been a very quick driver to follow all throughout this season, has couple of wins in this series, most of them coming at Lime Rock, so seeming to be a Lime Rock specialist here in this series, as Jesus Rodriguez, a reigning champion here from the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors, who won in Season 3 of 2024, jumps up to 5th, and Jason Green, I nearly said snatches. I was going to say a mix of snag and snatch. I don't think snaggage is really a word, but Jason Green jumping back up to the provisional pole.
Yeah, they're kind of trading blows there at the tip of the field. Definitely Ethan Orr doing very well there to kind of tit for tat everything Jason has been able to throw at him so far. I think we're going to have a pretty good race up at the front between the Spec 1 and the Spec 2 driver there, and Nate Colascio kind of bringing up the rear, few tenths behind. So there's definitely a bit of a gap to those first 2 drivers and then the rest of the field run. I'm wondering if maybe they are actually going to be able to pull away from the rest of the field today. Not an easy task to do in these V's, but with that sort of time differentiation there, it looks like might even be a possibility today.
Yeah, that could very well be a possibility. We could have back-to-back non-Spec 1 drivers taking checkered flags this season. That would be a storyline to end all storylines all throughout the season. Of course, we do have to talk about the championship fight. I will say as well, for the second week in a row, Tortello not joining us. So that's going to be rather intriguing as well. Lots of members in this series. And it should be noted that an anonymous member of the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors series is sponsoring this broadcast and making it possible. So to whoever you are, thank you very much for making today's broadcast on Slow Motion Broadcasting possible. And we would like to thank all the drivers and just everyone involved in the other Weekend Warriors for making this batch of series as awesome as it is. It's become a SMB staple, and really happy to stay tuned for all of these. It's strangely enough, only a couple of months from now, I will be celebrating just about a year since I got onto these Weekend Warriors broadcasts in some sort of full-time basis. So very, very happy to be a part of this journey and cover this racing action, which is set to be immense here at Donington Park. The three drivers in the top three are all three running in different classes. Jason Green, Spec 1. I nearly said Edgar. What is it with me and not knowing what Ethan Orr's first name is? First it was, was it Evan, then Ivan, then Edgar. No, it's Ethan Orr in Spec 2, currently slotted in P2, and then Urukmani running at the top three as it stands currently. So as much as a race at Thruxton 1 week ago was incredibly competitive, we may see that yet again here at Donington. And having a slight technical issue here right now. So hopefully we can get this resolved. Those technical issues always a bit of a pain in the butt. See, the worst part about the technical issues now is since everyone's coming back to work after the holiday season, I know me personally, despite the fact it's been about a month since Christmas, I'm still kind of getting back into the groove of things myself. You just call up IT now, and they don't even say, hello, IT, have you tried turning it off and on again? Hello, IT, have you tried this? And then they hang up the phone. So don't really know what's going on there, but hopefully I think we got the technical issues sorted and good to go and ready to rock to go. There we go. So we're back now, Josh. So yeah, looking very competitive here at Donington.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, series definitely not disappointing this this season. I don't think Donington's going to be any different. Like we were saying on the run-up, you know, a little bit different of a track maybe than we've been to in the last few the few outings here, but I think this one's going to race really, really good. Super flowing, super fast. It looks like we're pretty darn close up at the tip of the field here and even in the mid-pack as well. It's going to offer some pretty unique challenge here. And you know, like we were saying on the run-up too, not having that final left-hander blind, horrible apex at the end of the corner. This is definitely the good layout, Ron. And I really like driving around this track quite a bit.
This track is an absolute riot to race around in all sorts of different race cars. There's strangely enough, this is a very odd thing to say, but as is most of the stuff that comes out of my mouth whenever I'm on the air, so I guess that's not too out of character. But whenever I think of racing around Donington Park on iRacing, there's only one car that pops into my mind, and it's the Dallara IR18 Indy car. And I have a story about that. I think it was about a year and a half ago, coming up to 2 years now, back in fall of 2023, as I was still attempting to get my sea legs under me as a broadcaster, because holy cow, back then I really couldn't ad-lib a fart in a big bean factory. I was running the IR18 IndyCar around Donington to make a video on my own personal YouTube channel talking about how IndyCar should probably return to the UK, because it's been since 2002, I believe, was the last time an IndyCar turned a lap at a track in the UK for an official IndyCar race. And that was not, I mean, I say not terribly, terribly far away from the basis of a different broadcaster that used to cover the series, Rockingham Speedway in the UK. Really odd talking about ovals and having there be two Rockinghams, one in the US and North Carolina, and another in the UK, which I think is in Corby, unless I'm very much mistaken. My UK geography skills obviously not very good, but still, it's a wonderful track, and I have a feeling that it should probably have a bit more representation than it does. And interestingly enough, as we're still in the closing stages of this qualifying session, figured I would share this story. I'm trying to think of what year it was. It was in the late 2000s, merging into the early 2010s, when Formula One was set to leave Silverstone and actually move the British Grand Prix here to Donington Park. And there's some concept art of what the facility was going to look like upon F1 changing it. The straightaway between turn number 8 and 9 on today's track was going to be the site of the pit lane, and a decent chunk of the racetrack was going to be entirely reconfigured, sadly, because of funding issues that never came to pass. But either way, Donington Park, a wonderful track, and not just the world of iRacing, but in the world of motorsports altogether, and set to play host for was going to be one of the best races of this entire season. With a minute left to go in this qualifying session, that was going to be Jason Green. Not too much of a shock, grabbing the pole, and with a result like this and Tortolo not being here yet again, this may help him out a great deal in that Spec 1 championship fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's actually, if I remember correctly, Ron, I believe he was telling us that he's actually out doing some real-life racing and stuff at the moment, having some chances to drive some real cars, and so hopefully, we wish him all the best doing that. But yeah, it's going to leave a bit of a hole in the series here for sure that someone is going to fill rapidly today at Donington, and hopefully, we'll have him back soon so he can continue to fight for that victory here overall. But yeah, we're missing him this time, Ron, and it looks like we're just about to get to the grid.
Yeah, ready to get things up and rolling from the 6th race of this already incredible season. And here is the starting grid. Jason Green, as we said a couple of moments ago, going to be grabbing the pole position. Ethan Orr, who won overall as a Spec 2 man 1 week ago, he is going to round out your front row. York Monty, the Masters racer, going to be starting from the Masters pole in P3 overall. Chris Doden will be starting in 4th alongside Nate Coliseo in 5th. Jesus Rodriguez, the reigning champion from a few seasons ago, will find himself starting this race in 6th. Chris Montgomery will be in 7th, Guido Marzuki in 8th, Michelle Lynn will be starting in 9th, Antonio Reese in 10th, Jim Brewster in 11th, Suleiman Khan going to round out your 6th row. Gotta look through the rest of the starting grid here. I have a short pace lap, so I may have to burn through this as quick as I can. Alan DeGassis in 13th, Mark Cohn in P14, Matthew Mercedes in 15th, Russell Telker in 16th, Michael Latarullo in P17, Andrew Love in P18, Daniel Salmon will be starting in 19th, Ewan Parnell will round out your top 20, Nick Tullo in 21st, Jason Grider in 22nd, Brad Cathcart will start this race in 23rd, next to Parvinder Ladar in 24th. And looking through the final few starters, we've got Dan Szynski, Adam Thompson, SMB's very own, Travis Rail in 27th, Wayne Buttermore in 28th, Jeffrey Beck in 29th, Brian Szynski going to round out your 30 cars set to grab the green in a couple of moments' time. Josh, a race where we're expecting some nerves to be a bit present, considering we're knocking on the door at the end of the first half of the season, but with some long flat-out blasts around this track, we're expecting a lot of overtaking.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is going to be very racy, Ron. This is a racy track. There's lots of places to pass. There's just enough draft to get kind of close to people around you. I think this is going to be a really good one. And, once again, we've said it before. Maybe it sounds like a bit of a broken record, but making good decisions and being there at the end is going to be key to this race as well. It's not going to be easy out there. You're going to have to play ball with the people around you. Not going to want to be going 2, 3, and 4 wide into every single corner around here, because that is very slow at Donington Park. Yep. So we should see a pretty good aggressive race around here, I think. And the person who can be the pointiest and going to come out on the top of that aggressiveness is going to be the winner.
Yeah, to finish first yet to finish is really a saying that rings true in all of these Formula Vee Weekend Warriors races. These races can be hectic. It doesn't matter if you don't have any red on your race car. Some of these drivers get caught up in the red mist a bit more often than not. Not saying they're bad. They're absolutely brilliant drivers. However, in the heat of battle, some things can go wrong. Some things will certainly go right for some of these drivers. We're going to have 3 class winners to be decided in this race. Really happy to have you all on board for today's broadcast, I should really say, man. I've been doing too many late night shows here on SMB. Set to get things up and ready to go. That pace car going to make the turn to come down pit lane. The field now in the hands of our pole sitter, Jason Green. The green flags that, and the drivers are on their way. And Jason Green gang off to a flyer of a start. York Monty going to be side by side with your Spec 2 leader of Ethan Orr. Heading now down into turn number 1 while the premier overtaking opportunities around this racetrack. And let's see if anyone is going to try and go for it. Certainly a lot of drivers going side by side, 3 and even 4 wide, a little bit farther in the mid-pack. But it's going to be Jason Green pulling out a very big lead very early on.
Yeah, what a start from Jason Green there. He definitely took that green and ran with it for sure. He had a good reaction time there, and he's off to the races for sure. Once again, I'm wondering, maybe if the kind of technicality of this course is actually going to allow some people to kind of stretch out as we have an accident going on in the background, Ron.
A big crash heading through the old hairpin. You can see Andrew Love involved in that incident as well. Multiple cars being strewn around the racetrack. I think Nick Tullo may have gotten a piece of that action. Matthew Marcez in the number 78 car. Brian Szynski, I don't believe, took the start in this race, but some drivers already running into some difficulties. Looking at the bottom, trying to do the math in my head, the bottom 5 drivers: Michael Latarullo, Alan DeGassis, Daniel Salmon, Andrew Love, Nick Tullo, and Matthew Marcez. There we go. I was one off. It was actually 6. All of them have lost out on some spots at the start of this race, so I think they may have been involved in that incident. And we'll note as well, Alan DeGassis running down in 25th. He may not have gotten a piece of that bad action as he started this race into the pits. So, don't you? Oh my God,
that was
that's
Adam
a flipper
Thompson
heading through. That's Thompson lawn darted in the gravel trap on the outside of the final chicane. What in the world happened there?
That was a massive crash. I'm not exactly sure what happened to Adam there, but that was a big crash, and we're gonna have to go back and see if we can't find a replay on that shortly here on. Once we kind of spread out a bit here, we'll have a look at what happened there. That looked wild.
Yeah, that was a wild-looking collision. I could barely even register what I was seeing at that point in time with the car upside down, heading through that final chicane. Usually think of those curbs as ones that drivers like to flip off at either literally or figuratively, but that chicane, don't usually see a flip like that heading through it, let alone a Formula Vee being lawn darted on corner exits. So a lot of weird stuff going on already. It's not just the stuff coming out of my mouth. And we may have to load up the replay to see that drama, as the drama's still out there on the racetrack. Still very much on. York Monty dropping down to 5th as a side-by-side racing involving Antonio Reese, who's running 3rd of the Masters drivers right now. Getting moved on Parnell to slip his way up into lucky number P13. Monty involved in a close fight with himself and Chris Montgomery. Chris Doden getting involved in that action as well. I think Montgomery dropping back in that number 33 car. Yeah, I could see him getting hung out to dry on the inside line, hanging through the chicane, having to drop all the way back down to 9th. Tried to get moved on Monty, but in the process of that, dropped all the way down to 9th. Right in front of Michelle Lynn, who's your current 3rd place runner of the Spec 2 drivers.
Yeah, we've seen quite a bit of moving around here on the first lap, Ronald. A lot of side-by-side racing there and stuff as well. A little bit of jockeying for position, but I'm pretty interested to see what the heck happened to get so airborne there, Ron. Let's have a look.
Yeah, let's take a look at from Thompson in that 144 car, heading his way off into the corner. Not sure exactly who that car is behind him, and oh my good Lord! It was the curb. I was going to mention that those curbs are bad. And what in the heck did we just see? We may have to take a look at a slow motion replay of that here, and not a tie-in with slow motion broadcasting. When we paid for the instant replay, we may as well use it till you're bored, silly folks. How many
just a
flips
massive
was
tank
that? That was
slapper,
probably
Rob.
about 4. Yeah, big tank slapper. Tank slapper, there we go. I'm not sure what a tank slapper is. That sounds like a violation of natural law. But holy cow, using that curb as a ramp.
Yeah, that was a really, really good advert for not having sleeping policemen as curbs there. That would have, broke a back, broke some ribs, shook your brain up. That was not a good crash at all, and pretty good advert for why those things are just kind of not a good idea, Ron. Like, that wasn't even it was pretty high speed, I suppose, but you can imagine if you were in a real car and you smacked that thing sideways and got launched into the air like that, it would not only be painful, but also very surprising.
Yeah, that would throw just about anyone for a loop. I can't even imagine how Adam Thompson is feeling at the present moment. I'm going to look through. He is still in the session, albeit has had to tow back to pit lane, and has he actually rejoined the race? God bless America. I think he has in the 144 car, so iracing mechanics working hard with the Red Bull to get that car repaired. It's definitely driving like a tin can on wheels for certain, but still the fact he's able to rejoin the race after, I'm going to do some investigative journalism. I really want to count the barrel rolls that he did. And Josh, I will let you handle the battle for the lead, which is certainly spicing up with Jason Green, Ethan Orr, and Nate Coliseo as I do this aforementioned absolutely horrendous investigative journalism.
Absolutely, Ron. I'd be interested to see exactly how many. I'm going to guess, I think he went over at least 4 times in the air before he hit the ground again. He kind of flicked and then flipped, 3 or 4 times before he touched the ground again? That's what I'm going to guess anyway. But back to the action here at the front. Ethan Orr looking pretty pointy again today with Nate Coliseo starting to bring up the rear here in 3rd. So my theory about potentially being able to run away with this race up at the front, not really coming to fruition for Jason Green there, even though he did have a pretty good solo lap there, a couple pretty good solo laps. Ethan Orr, was able to pretty closely match those, and now Coliseo has come along for the ride here in the draft, perhaps finding some secrets from the two drivers in front of him, but it does look like it's getting a little bit more pointy out at the front of the field here as the pack kind of behind us starts to sort of get a little bit more racy as well here, and we're kind of starting to pack drive out a little bit. We've got a few packs forming throughout the field, lots of racing going on, and still tons of time left, Ron.
Tons of time left in this Formula Vee Weekend Warriors race, and to tie the bow around the storyline, it was 4.5 flips from Thompson. So you were actually, if you counted the other under-over, I'm pretty sure you just about got it right there, Josh. So I'll count that in your regard. So you can add the little check to you right there. Add that to the SMB commentator / producer bingo card here that we have. And look at this, we got a battle going on with Jason Grider nearly running off into the dirt. Brad Cathcart right in front of him. Never mind, it's now Beck right in front of him. Grider with that bad run coming through turn number 7 of McLean's. That's going to cause him to lose out on a bit of momentum and a bit of time in the process. And that's a big crash coming onto the back straightaway. Coming out of turn number 8, Ewan Parnell going to get spun in that 556 car. And that was some bump drafting going desperately wrong. What is it with the pronunciations that I cannot muster on today's broadcast? And here's a replay to see what went desperately wrong.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised at the continuing attempts at bump drafting. To me, honestly, it's just kind of silly. I really don't. These aren't cars that you bump draft in. They're just not. And if you're going to do it, man, oh man, you had better get it right. Or you're ruining somebody else's race. And that's not something we like to see. So I'm not really sure if Brad Cathcart was actually after that right there, Ron. It did look a little bit kind of half in, half out sort of thing. I'm not really sure he meant to make contact there, but nonetheless, I would really like to not see people trying to bump draft each other in these cars anymore. It doesn't work out. It's not meant to be.
Yeah, it's not going to work out whenever you bump draft in these race cars. I mean, just look at the back of these cars when we get the opportunity to, following Jason Green heading out of turn number 8 right now. You can see the back of these cars, and it's not a lot of real estate that you've got to work with in terms of bump drafting. You think, okay, bump drafting in a NASCAR, that makes sense. You've got bumpers, no harm, no foul. Here in these race cars, you've got a pointed nose looking to touch what's probably about like a 2-inch wide piece of metal on the back of the car. Genuinely, it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle in a way.
It's like a needle. It's like a needle trying to bump draft a needle. It's not very smart. It's not going to work out. Maybe 1 out of 100 times you're going to get that absolutely perfect and somebody's not going to wiggle. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up facing the wrong way, and it's not worth it. I just don't understand why people try it.
That's a very good analogy there, Josh. I like that. I may end up having to steal that myself and possibly pay some royalties to you, perhaps.
So I could use it.
Still, it's trust me, I could as well. So, boy, at the front of the field, we've still got these front 3 breaking away. You have to go back to York Monty in 4th to find the next pack of race cars, and he's about 2 seconds back of our leader of Jason Green. Just barely see him in the same camera shot heading through Storky's Bridge of turn number 5. That's Storky's Bridge. I don't know why. That sounds like a, just say very Aussie.
A very Aussie sounding name there, Ron, for sure. I grew up, I spent 20 years in Whistler, British Columbia, and it just happens to be that, I don't know, probably a quarter of Australia lives in Whistler, and man, oh man, do they ever have some sayings for things. It's quite interesting, actually. It's a pretty fun vernacular to play with.
It is some nice corner names around some of the Australian tracks as well. I gotta say though, the best corner name is one that we cannot say. It's one of the corner names around VIR on the back straightaway, and I will refrain from any further comment. Here's Chris Montgomery, and holy cow, all the way down in 17th. He's involved in a battle with himself, Parvinder Ladar, and Ewan Parnell. But Montgomery, what's the opposite of a flyer? He's had a crasher of a race thus far. He's running in 16th. He is down quite a lot of spots. I remember we were talking about him trying to get moved on Jorg Mani earlier on, but dropping back behind right in front of Michelle Lynn, who's currently the final car inside the top 10. He's now outside the top 15, so what in the world is going on to Chris Montgomery for him to drop down like an anvil pushed out of a helicopter But either way, still on the up and up. I gotta say, one driver certainly on the up and up is Beck in the 238. Now, how many positions was that gained? I think up 14 spots is Jeffrey Beck. Yeah, there you go. 14 spots gained for the driver running in 15th. That is just about
impressive,
as faultless as you possibly can get.
Yeah, pretty impressive stuff there for Beck. Absolutely. I'm just noticing here, Ron, it looks like we've lost a few drivers. Andrew Love, I saw a few people hit the pits there. I'm going to do some investigative journalism here on my incident ticker and see if I can't track that down. But it looks like we've lost a couple drivers in the last lap or so while we were chatting away there about Montgomery with the pretty nice move there into the chicane, being one of the kind of better spots to make a pass around here.
And we may have to hit the books, so to speak, to try and see what exactly is going on for some of the drivers. Here is Andrew Love in that 544 car, heading his way up through turn number 8 now. And oh my God, he flipped it too. Two flips already barrel rolling in the gravel trap on the outside of turn number 8. 2 flips already, and we haven't even ticked over the 12-minute mark.
Have a look at what happened here. It looked like somebody just parked it in the middle of so we had a little bit of a moment and some avoidance, and then unfortunately just didn't really react to it here with Andrew Love. I think maybe he sort of possibly saw some blood in the water there, looking like, oh, I can pick up 2 positions real quick here, and just didn't really execute it right, and unfortunately ended up on his lid. So yeah, that's Andrew Love pretty much out of the running for points today there, Ron.
Yeah, so that's going to take him out of contention. The driver who kicked the season off with 3 straight Spec 2 wins is now going to be on a 3-race streak of not grabbing a win in the Spec 2 category. Certainly not the way you want to end this first half of the season off at all. But who knows, still got a lot of time left to go for the reigning Spec 2 champion here from the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors to try and mount a charge back up to the front of the field. A driver who's certainly been a man on a mission is Jeffrey Beck. I think I may have given him a commentator's jinx, though, because after I mentioned that he was running in 15th, up 14 spots, he's now in 17th, still up 12 spots, but that advantage that he had of the hard charger in this race is not as comfortable as it once was. Second place in the hard charger category currently belongs to Brad Cathcart, running at 13th. He's up 10 spots from where he started in the 905 car. However, I'm looking to try and see if he can actually get involved in a battle to maybe make that couple of more. I think he has a bit of a cushion to try and surmount between himself and Mark Cohn running in 12th. So that's actually, I say that, what am I saying? You can see Mark Cohn right in front of him. So my our live timing tower playing me like an absolute fiddle.
Yeah, sometimes does take a second for it to kind of catch up there. It can be a little bit confusing time and again. But yeah, it looks like he's close enough to mount an attack here. I think, Ron, he does have a little bit of damage on that nose from the kind of ill-advised bump drafting session he had there with the other driver. But it looks like it hasn't really slowed him down much, and looks like maybe he can have he can make up some positions here if he continues to push at it. But we lost a couple drivers here, unfortunately, but still pretty pointy out at the front. And it looks like we've kind of created a pack here behind Jorg Mani that is growing and growing and growing. And I have a feeling it is going to start getting a little bit dicey here shortly.
And let's see how this diciness is going to go. Are one of these drivers going to chop up their finger trying to dice an onion, or are they going to be able to put that diced onion in a pan and make some good fried onions for a cheesesteak? You can tell that I haven't had food yet today. Jim Brewster, who we're running on board with, running in 7th, second of the Masters drivers at the moment. He has a Spec 1 and a Spec 2 driver between himself and the Masters leader currently of Jorg Mani as I bump into the mic stand. Hopefully that didn't get picked up on the microphone. But
Nope.
Godin and Rodriguez running in between those 2 cars, and they're not alone in that regard. You got Guido Marzucchi in the number 19, the Italian, running in 8th, and Russ Telker running at this pack currently in 9th, and a nice little battle certainly forming, I gotta say as well, Josh. Talking about this battle, they haven't really been going side by side and trading blows like a bunch of boxers in a ring. That's part of the reason why they are slowly but surely, I feel, really in that gap to the drivers up in front of them of Green, Orr, and Coliseo. It's only a second and a half, I should say, between this man of Jorg Mani and Nate Coliseo in 3rd. So who knows? Come time for the end of this race, with now half of it left to go, we could end up seeing a massive pack battle for the win.
Yeah, Ron, I think you're right, man. I didn't really notice that, but it does actually look like they are catching up to this front pack. So I'm wondering if this track, Ron, just because of its sort of the nature of the way you drive it, is actually kind of keeping them in a line. There is kind of only one really fast line out there, and if you pull out of it, you really, really do lose a lot of time, and it looks like it has sort of kind of kept everybody in line, and it's actually promoting kind of some more overall speed as a pack of cars here. And I think you're right, Ron. It looks like this pack is about to catch that front pack, and we are about to see a really long train of V's for the last little bit of this race. At least I have my fingers crossed for that anyway. I would really like to see Jorg Monty and this pack catch up to that front pack here and just have a stonker at the end, but really only time will tell here. I'm thinking maybe this track is promoting that kind of driving though, Ron.
Yeah, you see that a lot with a lot of racetracks all across the world. They promote a different driving style that some of these drivers may not be comfortable with at all. You think of a street circuit, yeah, you got to attack the corners. Oh, that's a car going off the track. That was Beck, Jeffrey Beck. No. I apologize, Jeffrey, for the commentator's jinx of a century. He's now dropped down to 21st. And that hard charger award is no longer his. Let's have a look at heading down into the old hairpin at the bottom of this hill. Did he lose it all on his own? No, there's a little bit of contact with himself and Parnell, touching the back of Parnell, and I don't know what it is. Maybe some like 5W30 motor oil dosed on the back of these race cars, because tap, and there you go. The iRacing janky physics with the Formula V's biting Jeffrey Beck right in the back.
It looks like, it looked like maybe just a small checkup from the driver in front of him there. Maybe just a little bit more brake in it than the previous laps and stuff, and kind of caught him out a little bit. And, he reacted to it, but the reaction was to kind of spin the car, unfortunately. He didn't really have much of a choice. It was either get on the clappers hard or run into the back of the car in front of you. So, yeah, unfortunately, that one took back out in that kind of meteoric charge he had there at the beginning of this race, making up all those positions, and unfortunately just lost a bunch.
Yeah, that is going to be a kick in the shins if ever you see one. So now the hard charger from this race is Brad Cathcart. However, Jeffrey Beck's still in contention for that. Actually, I say that they're tied now in terms of the amount of spots they've gained, both up 11, as Travis Rail dropping down the running order, I believe, in the 284 car. But lots of drivers making hay while the sun is shining, and hey, we still got a decent chunk of this race left to go. Just ticked over the halfway mark, 2 minutes and 40 seconds ago. But one driver who's certainly not on the charge, who I think it just fixed itself there. I was about to say the Iberian flag from the driver of the U.S. and the number 33 car. I think my graphics may have been screwed up there. There's a spin for him heading through turn number 7. Chris Montgomery and the no good, very bad race here at Donington Park. I believe he's dropped all the way down now to 27th. I'm not even sure if he's out there on the racetrack still. He's already behind Adam Thompson, which is saying something, because he at one point flipped 4 times. So Montgomery just not having a good day behind the wheel.
Yeah, it looked like, potentially he had a bit of a hardware issue or something there, Ron. It looks like perhaps... Oh, we've actually got a lead change up at the front here. Coliseo is actually in the lead now, Ron. I'm gonna change my thought there, but it looks like maybe perhaps Montgomery had some sort of a hardware failure, or almost money shifted.
Yeah, potentially when it comes to these stick shift cars, a money shift can be an absolute game wrecker. And the noise of these cars, it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but the unmistakable sound of a motor exploding certainly isn't. But here's the battle up at the front of the field exploding. Nate Coliseo in the number 8 car getting the 2-for-1 deal, heading off down the back straightaway into that final chicane. He gets it done, but in the process of all of that, look at that, immediately bringing in the likes of Jorg Monty, Chris Doden, Jesus Rodriguez, and Jim Brewster. Brewster actually a little bit farther back as it stands currently, but still a massive pack of race cars at the front of the field, 2 by 2, heading their way off into the chicane. Chris Doden, who are riding on board within the 204 car, maybe trying to make hay while the sun is shining and get a move done on Jorg Monty. Not close enough yet, as Monty gonna try and get a move done on Ethan. Or Green and Monty were involved in that battle for the win 1 week ago at Thruxton, and yet again, in case of deja vu from this series, as they're battling up towards the front yet again. Jason Green getting the move done to slip his way into the race lead. Nate Coliseo now side by side on corner exit with Ethan Orr, but Orr now side by side with Monty. This is close quarter stuff at the north end of the field. They're seeing the checkered flag come up in a tick over 10 minutes time, and they're losing their patience. They want to end this first half of the season on a high. Jason Green looking to try and win that Spec 1 championship here from the season. And look at that, a big moment from Nate Coliseo. That's going to set him down the running order and out of that battle. Well held from Coliseo. Yeah, well done, Josh. That was very well held from Nate Coliseo in the number 8 car, dropping down to 9th. And I think he got some assistance there. He may have gotten the old bootscoon boogie from Ethan Orr coming out of the corner.
Yeah, absolutely he did. We got another little poke in the rear end there, and it ended up kind of kicking him sideways, and what a reaction to be able to hold that car together there, Ron, and keep it on the road. Lost a ton of positions, but boy, oh boy, he should have ended up in that wall, and he didn't actually end up in that wall. So that was some pretty good reaction time from Nate Coliseo. Let's see if we can't see maybe an overhead view. And we missed it again. I'll give that one more shot here. See if we can't get a chopper view of exactly maybe what went down there. And yeah, we got another little tap in that kind of point we were looking at before, Ron, and you just can't really play around with that. You're not going to be able to do that in these cars. You're not going to get away with it.
Yeah, that is a moment where, I mean, we saw it earlier on with Cathcart and I believe it was Ewan Parnell earlier on coming out of turn number 8, where those two tried a little bit of bump drafting coming onto that back straightaway. It just did not go well. That, however, I feel like was just Ethan Orr either misjudging it terribly heading through into turn number 8 of Starkey's Bridge. That, or it was some bump drafting gone desperately wrong. Either way, a clumsy moment for Orr, and that's going to cause Nate Coliseo, who at one point was leading. He's certainly not leading anymore and probably will not be leading throughout the rest of this race. He has about a second gap between himself and Russ Telker for 8th, let alone to get back up to the front of the field. So Nate Coliseo definitely on the back foot, but again, he's a very fast driver in this series, and the Chiquita Banana car may find himself slipping his way back up towards the front.
Yeah, you never know. You never know in a string of cars like this. He is kind of just close enough maybe to be able to mount an attack, at least on a good portion of these drivers still left at the front of the field here. But I think a chance up at the front and first is probably not in the cards for Coliseo again, and that's pretty unfortunate. I agree with you, Ron. I don't think Ethan meant to make contact there. I think that was just some close racing that kind of went wrong. It's not easy to judge things, and you want to try to intimidate the guy in front of you, and you want to make sure that he knows you're there and so on. And I think sometimes that's just what happens. You make a little bit of contact, and unfortunately, Coliseo gets shuffled down. But I don't think that was intentional. If you asked Ethan, I would think he's apologetic for that one.
Either way, though, it will cause Ethan Orr a little bit of a headache for the simple sake that he and Chris Doden now lock steady in a very close battle for the win in the Spec 2 category. Those two running 2nd and 3rd overall. Jason Green still holding on to the overall lead. Jesus Rodriguez and York Monty running at the top 5. We're following Monty at the moment. He is the second to last car involved in this battle, as Guido Marzuki is actually the last one running in 6th. Had to go a little bit farther back to find the small pack of Jim Brewster and Russ Telker. Nate Coliseo is a little bit farther behind them as well. Actually, I say that he's going to get involved in that fight in the not too distant future, I believe. But Chris Doden in the number 2 car, let's see him heading off into turn number 1. I'm curious what the strategy is for Chris Doden come time for the end of this race with only 6.5 minutes left to go on the clock. Are you going to battle with Jason Green for the overall win and try and seize the opportunity while it is in your grasp? Or do you try and focus a bit more on Ethan Orr and don't cause yourself to fall face first into the sand trying to swing for the fences?
Yeah, I think me personally, there's only one answer there, and that's to continue moving forward. The best the best defense is a good offense, and trying to get forward, try to get around Green, try to start fighting with Green, maybe even use Green as sort of your of your map for speed and so on in front of you. And I think getting away from the car behind you is probably the best course of action in this. Especially in this draft racing the way it is like this, you kind of want to do your very best to just see if you can't get a gap between that driver behind you, and the only way to do that is to go forward as quickly as you can.
And try and keep that march going up towards the front of the field, and who knows, you may end up backing your car into victory lane when everything is said and done. Side-by-side racing with Jim Brewster and Russ Telker heading through turn number 8 right now. Nate Coliseo now firmly involved in this battle with these drivers battling hard. That's going to allow the 6-car breakaway of Marzuki, Monty, Rodriguez, or Doden, and Green to begin to slip away. But look at this 3-wide action heading down the back straightaway. Nate Coliseo in the 8 car on the inside line. He led this race earlier on, got involved in some difficulties to take him out of that battle, but he now finds himself in a battle yet again, this time with Telker and Brewster just barely inside the top 10, and he was oh so close to going the way of Thompson earlier on and tumbling his way through the gravel, but thankfully he kept it off the curb for now, but certainly giving the racers around him a lot of trouble is that number 8 car. He is fast. He's a very good driver in this series, and who knows, if he didn't have that incident, he would probably be the biggest thorn in the side for Jason Green.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He was definitely in the mix there, and he's clearly got the speed. He's making his way back up towards that pack again already, and pretty clean move there as well that he made on the drivers here. And yeah, pretty impressed with Coliseo today, actually, even especially with that save there, not to put it in the wall, and then he's still out there fighting for positions. He could potentially get a top 5 here. Maybe he's kind of running out of time now, but you never know. He's got the overall pace here, and man, up at the front there, we still have a pretty big pack of drivers here, and anything can happen, Ron. We know that these V races seem to kind of really come to a point near the end, so to speak, and sometimes that point can be a little pointier than you want it to be.
Yeah, sometimes that point is a little bit dull, much like most of the ones that come out of my mouth. Or other times they're so sharp that, in fact, a school principal may pull you aside and give you detention because of it. But nevertheless, these drivers looking to have the pointiest point to ever point as York Monty, looking for as many points as he can. The Masters leader running 5th overall at the moment. Have to go back to Brewster in 9th to find the next Masters competitor. But he's going to go for all that glory. He's been so close to some overall victories in the races thus far. We can count as 3 for 3 in terms of the races thus far this season, which York Monty has been contending for not only the Masters win, which he's usually doing week after week, but contending for the overall victory as well. But at this point in time, I feel like the fate is kind of out of York Monty's hands currently, which is based off the fact that he's not a fan of rain racing, not really too big of a fan of strategy racing either. He's a driver who likes to forge his own path in these events, so the spot he finds himself in, probably a bit of a frustrating one, but the people, I should say, that are going to decide this race is going to be Ethan Orr and Chris Doden. If they battle hard, that's going to allow Jason Green to pull away for him to grab another pretty comfortable win. He won in comfortable fashion a couple of weeks ago at Okayama, but if Ethan Orr and Chris Doden start to battle too much for that Spec 2 win and allow Jason Green to pull away, that could really make or break the way this race goes. Monty trying to get moved on Doden, hang down that back straightaway. Will it be a successful move from the driver of the 925 car? Yes, it will be, as Doden backs out of it, but that's going to give a bit of a cushion to Jason Green and Ethan Orr, who may be eyeballing a side-by-side fight.
Yeah, absolutely there, Getting past, in a spot just like York Manny made the pass there, you kind of almost want to facilitate that pass so that you end up not losing time. And you can see now that, Manny was able to keep sort of his momentum going, but because Dowden even put up a little bit of a resistance to it, well, he's way back here now. And that's basically because he just didn't facilitate that pass. You're trying to hold it off. He did, not do too bad of a job there of letting him by, but you can see now he's lost another position and he's actually under attack by another car, and it would have been probably a better idea to just kind of hold it together there and let Monty by, try to get behind him, and then you can continue to draft the cars in front of you. But as we can see here now, he's actually lost a bit of time, and that's sort of a lesson we just learned live there as well. Not easy to do, not easy to see when you're in the cockpit, but certainly the result.
Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to battles and all the Weekend Warriors series broadcasted here on SMB, mind you. You see this a lot, week after week. Sometimes you see it pointed at multiple times in any given race. Drivers battling hard and kind of screwing themselves over at the end of the day. So this 6-car pack that we saw a few moments ago is now very much broken into 3 and 3, but it's not 3 minutes left to go in this race. It's not 3 laps left to go. It's not even a matter of anything. It is 1 lap left to go here from the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors. Who's it going to be taking the checkered flag? You got one driver from all the classes in the top 3. Who's going to win? And Jason Green not involved in a side-by-side fight. York Monty and Ethan Orr certainly are, though, heading through turn number 1. Monty trying to do everything he can to grab an overall checkered flag, but these two drivers going side-by-side, it's going to be music to the ears and certainly some art to the eyes of Jason Green running at the front. You can see that gap ballooning now to about 0.2 of a second. Still practically nothing, though, and in that side-by-side fighting, should be noted, that brought Jesus Rodriguez, Chris Doden, and Guido Marzucchi back into this fight. Ethan Orr now got to try and get a move done on York Monty. Jesus Rodriguez looking to get a move done on the both of them. Very close to coming to blows. Heading now down into turn number 7 for the final time in this race. Jason Green, though, leading by a half a second coming out of turn number 7. We've got 8, 9, and 10 left to go. Jesus Rodriguez trying to get it done on Ethan Orr into turn number 8. It's gutsy, and it looks like he'll be able to get that move done unless Chris Doden has anything to say about it. Look at Doden in that 204 car. He's going to maybe try and fight hard, but Jason Gray at the front of the field, he's now building that gap to himself, and York Monty 3 wide fighting right behind for the final spot on the podium. They're going to single file out. It's going to be Rodriguez winning it there, but at the front of the field, who's it going to be winning this race? Green and Monty side by side right to the line, and it's going to be Jason Green winning it over Monty. 0.044 of a second after over 30 minutes of racing action. Holy cow.
Yeah, it looks like we had a couple there between Jim Brewster and Russell Telker there right to the line as well. Coliseo actually coming out ahead of that pack of drivers that he was racing with as well. But what a finish there for the first head or the few first drivers there as well. It looked like Monty couldn't quite get it done there. I was really rooting for him. I thought maybe he was going to be able to grab that right at the end, Ron. It looked very possible, but unfortunately Jason Green's lines through that last or fortunately I should say for Jason, those lines through that last chicane there really worked out for him. He was able to keep it, so good on Jason for not scrubbing too much speed and really being able to just kind of command this race today.
Yeah, that was a commanding drive, but was not a commanding win. The fate was entirely out of his hands on that final run to the checkered flag. But holy cow, that was a barn burner of a race here at Donington Park. But Jason Green going to walk away with the victory, his second one of the season. But he's been making hay while the sun has been shining throughout this season, because Tortolo, we mentioned earlier on, we actually mentioned this last week, he's, I believe, still out in Japan doing some... actually, I don't think he's still out in Japan. He was out in Japan for the last race of the season at Thruxton, running a go-kart at a track right by Fuji Speedway, incidentally enough. And here today, not showing up, so I'm curious as to whether or not he's still recovering from that. As someone who drove go-karts for nearly nearly half of my life, I can assure you that it is not a very comfortable drive driving those things for as long as he did. But here we go. It's the Weekend Warriors tradition, and there is Jesus Rodriguez. That was Guido Marzuki coming in for the kill on our winner of Jason Green. And who's going to hit him next? Who's going to treat Jason Green as the Weekend Warriors pinata? That it looks like it's Wayne Buttermore coming in for the kill on him. And yes, it was Buttermore. My corresponding skills seem to not be too terrible at the broadcast, as my manner of speaking has. And my God, upside down. I'm starting to run out of stuff to say when we see this Crash 'em Up Rock Fest.
Whoa. Yikes. Yeah, it's, just burning it down. It's our usual tradition here. I was wondering what it is they were going to find. It's, to me, it's always interesting every week as to where exactly they're going to end up and what it is they're actually going to do to burn it down, as it looks like Jason Green is going for a little bit of an exploratory mission here with the broken front end. Perhaps he just can't steer to get back over there, and Monty's doing a little bit of dump truck driving here. Yeah, it's always interesting to see exactly where it is they're going to burn it down and what they're going to do, what they're going to find. No jumps on this particular track, so we're just going to spin around and smash each other. And, it's what we do after all these races. It's always a bit fun, to sort of shake off that stress from you're all tight and you've been holding your teeth together really tight and your chest is tight and your heart's been beating and you're sweating, and it's kind of fun just to do some donuts and smash the car at the end, let it out.
And let out the frustration, and certainly some of these drivers may be a little bit frustrated with how things went, but one driver certainly isn't frustrated, as Jason Green, who gets hit for about the 15th quintillion time ever since the drop of the checkered flag, but he still wins it here at Donington Park as we see this absolute chaos go on the racetrack. And lots of damage going on. I can see another driver upside down. I think a couple more drivers upside down. What in the blue hell is that? That's two cars merged into one. Yeah, we got fire going on here. Let's break out the fire. And what did we just see with Russ Telker? And there she goes. Yeah. And pop goes the engine.
Who is that underneath there? Yeah, let's have a look at the results here, Ron, before we get too enamored with the car spinning around and smashing each other.
Yeah, let's do that, because I am genuinely at a loss for words. Jason Green maybe got to be at a loss for words, taking his second checkered flag of this season and taking the wins when exactly they're going to help him at the most. He wins it in front of Jurek Monty, wins it in the Masters category, finishing P2 yet again, making it 3 for 6 races that the Masters driver has been in contention for the overall win, and also his 4th Masters win of this still seemingly early on season. Now that we are over the halfway mark, I guess it's not too early on. Jesus Rodriguez, though, in his best result in quite some time here from the broadcast of the Formula Vee Weekend Warrior Series, he ends up running out your podium in 3rd. Chris Doden going to finish in 4th. Ethan Orr will finish in P5. The overall winner last time at Thruxton was in contention for it, but he drops down to finish his 2nd of the Spec 2 racers. Doden grabbing his first checkered flag of the season. Guido Marzuki ends up 3rd of the Spec 2 racers, 6th overall. Jim Brewster going to finish in 7th. We have Russell Telker in 8th. Nate Coliseo, who had a spin with about 2 laps left to go, he ends up in 9th, right in front of Michelle Lynn, who runs at your top 10. Suleiman Khan 11th. Mark Cohn in 12th. Alan DeGassis ends up in P13. Brad Cathcart in P14. Jason Grider in 15th. Parvin Aladar in 16th. Michael Lattarulo in 17th. Ewan Parnell ends up in P18 at the end of this race. Jeffrey Beck ends up in 19th. Daniel Salmon will round out your top 20. Nick Tulo going to finish in 21st. Dan Szynski ends up in 22nd. Travis Rail in 23rd. Andrew Love in 24th. Wayne Buttermore in 25th. Adam Thompson certainly grabbing the attention from us, grabbing some 10 out of 10s in terms of the aerial acrobatics.
Definitely 10 out of 10.
But he does not grab a top 25, ends up just barely outside in 26th. Chris Montgomery in 27th, Matthew Mercedes in 28th. Antonio Reese runs out the field that actually took the start with Brian Szynski in 30th, still classified despite not grabbing the green. Should be noted that our hard charger from the 6th race of the season is actually going to end up being Jeffrey Beck. So even with that little bit of a trouble spot that he found in the midpoint of this race, the driver finishing in 19th is still our hard charger from this race. But Josh, got some drivers waiting in the interview waiting area. Who would you want to have a chat with first?
Yeah, let's pull in the winner there, Jason Green. Let's have a quick talk with him first, and then we can get on to, I think we have 2 more after that there. But Jason Green putting on a pretty commanding lead there today. Jumped off to a really good start. Kind of got caught about mid-race. It looked like it was going to get a bit dicey, but ended up being able to pull out the win in the end right down to the last corner there, Jason. Pretty good track today. I actually really like Donington a lot. I absolutely hate the layout that has the final left-hand hairpin there, but this wasn't that layout today. One of my favorite layouts. Do you like this track as well?
Yeah, it seems we were talking about it yesterday in the draft party that it's a perfect track for the V's. Honestly, it's a great combo of fast corners that put the V on the limits, and some draft, but not a lot of draft. It's definitely not the overpowering draft we had at Thruxton last week. So you still need just a little bit of driver skill to make the pass. Also, there's no like slam dunk passes, so you can get half a move done. And yeah, you need to play it right to get the other half done. So yeah, I got super lucky to get on pole, so I was able to be up front. Probably if I was making a little bit too many mistakes, so Monty put the collar up to us. I think if Ethan had been out in front, he would have been able to keep us ahead of the second pack. I think he had more pace than me, but yeah, I managed to accidentally get a win there. So managed to hang on.
Yeah, it looks like one of those tracks again. We were kind of talking on the run up where it's not necessarily a hard track to pass out, but you're definitely going to lose a lot of time if you attempt one and it doesn't go right. And we saw that happen a few times out there where, throughout the season here, we've seen a lot of side-by-side and 4 wide and 5 wide and 3 wide every lap into, maybe even multiple corners, and that was just not the case today. We had a lot of very in-a-line driving kind of until the end of the race there, and I think, as you were sort of alluding to, I think that has sort of a lot to do with the track and kind of keeping people in line. Anytime we saw somebody try to pass somebody, they usually just fell back, especially if they didn't facilitate the pass. So pretty interesting kind of dichotomy out there how this track worked today, and it was an interesting one to watch, and great win as well there, Jason. It looks like you're leading the series by quite a bit. I think Thor has a couple drop rounds, so maybe he has 1 more or 2 more drop rounds after this, so I don't think he's in any real danger yet, but it's certainly not helping him out that you're getting wins and he's not around. So is there anybody you'd like to thank here at the end of today?
Thanks to Michelle as always for giving me a killer setup. Couldn't put it on pole without her. Thanks to Jim as well for being the admin for this series. He does a great job of track selection and just keeping us all in order and getting 30 people to be here and race around Donington. And thanks to those 30 people for showing up. It's incredible when we get these big grid of V's driving around. So thanks everybody for showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. 30 V's around Donington, pretty cool. And our huge thanks to folks like Jim Brewster who are out there doing stuff in the background to keep these races going. And we've mentioned it before, and we'll mention it again there to have these things look as good as they do and as kind of nonchalant as they do. It takes a lot of work in the background and a lot of analytics and a lot of numbers and a lot of spreadsheets. And Jim's a master at stuff like that, and we wouldn't be able to do it without him. So awesome to thank him. And we'll see you next week there, Jason. Good job on today's race, and looks like you're doing pretty good for the championship. So we'll keep watching.
Yep, can't wait till Tor gets back. It's always fun racing him.
Yeah, we can't wait till he gets back either. Get you guys, good top 5-6 drivers there who can take every race, and that just makes it a lot of fun to watch.
Yep.
And that right there was Jason Green, the winner from this race here at Donington Park. And I'll bring in the man who he went side by side with and battled right to the line to win this race, Jorg Mani, now joining us in the commentary booth. And now, Jorg, that drag race right to the line, not going to go your way, but a 4th Masters win this season. So talk us through the hecticness here at Donington Park.
Bloody hell. I thought, okay, I'm going to try it. I have not done one single lap on Donington this week, so I just tried it. I thought I might be lethal. I have to start out of the pits, but certainly the qualifying went quite well. Then the start was kind of decent. Then I made kind of little slide, and I got passed. I just tried to get away from everybody, not to spin. And so I got passed again, and after that I tried to catch up the front 3 or front 4 all the time. And I did one quali lap after the other one, and I'm done now. Yeah, I'm physically done.
I can imagine a race around a track like this definitely takes a lot out of you in terms of the way you don't really have any point to rest around this track. Got the back straightaway and the start finish straightaway, but outside of that, it's just constantly racing. So I want to ask you about your perspective in terms of managing a race around this track.
That's actually a very intelligent question. I think everybody has an own recipe for that. I tried to survive actually the first 2 or 3 laps because I knew the tires kicked in after that. And after that, I just tried to do no mistakes. Even in the draft, I lifted a lot earlier than anybody else, so I had more exit speed out of it, and that's how I could manage the distance between the pack lead and going back and forth all the time. And otherwise, I'm not doing anything special, actually. I'm just trying to have fun, and that's what I had.
I gotta say, for a way to have fun, it's a pretty darn good way to do it here from the Weekend Warriors. And next time we're gonna be seeing this series, we're going to be taking a trip across the pond, running at Sebring in 1 week's time. So, what are your thoughts heading into that race in 1 week's time?
I'm gonna get some new cushions under my bum, so I'm not gonna be hobbling around all the time. So that's the only thing I know in Sebring.
Yeah, I gotta say, honestly, Jorg, I've been dealing with some bad back pain the past couple of days, and I feel like just thinking about racing around Sebring makes that back pain 1,000 times worse. I can't even imagine the arm workout that you drivers are going to be having in 1 week's time. But Jorg, thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth. Well done on the Masters win. And before we let you go, is there anyone you want to give a thanks to or shout out?
Yes, of course, to our sponsor, who was Anonymous. Let's see if we find out who it was, but thank you to him or to her. I don't know if it's a him or her. And thank you to you guys for broadcasting, and thank you to the other guys, to the racer. It's great fun with you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for the kind words there, Jorg. Well done on the win. Excited to see you back out on the racetrack for the rest of the season, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.
And that right there was Jörg Mani, your winner in the Masters category for certainly not the first time this season, and hopefully will not be the last, just based off the pace that he's shown. Jim Brewster, though, he also kicked the season off with a win at the opening race of the season. He's now joining us in the commentary booth. Jim, welcome into the commentary booth, man. How's it going?
Well, it was a sunny, bright day at Donington. First place time we had visited. The surfs have been there, but the V's was new, so we had a good Friday night session, and I think it made for a good race. What do you guys think?
Well, it absolutely did. That race was pretty brilliant, and the battling up towards the front of the field, especially with Jason Green and Jörg Mani going side by side, battling hard right to the line. That was fantastic, and I mean, you can speak to that as well, because you're battling up at the north end of the field throughout a decent chunk of this race as well.
It's not battling as much as not making a single mistake. The chicanes, you couldn't dare go through the chicane side by side. There's many places you couldn't dare go side by side. What the track with the V's are slow enough that you could make half passes. You could get up beside somebody, but you couldn't complete passes without some real cooperation. So mostly it was saying tucked in and hoping your group could get away from the group behind you. And just try to nail laps, bam, 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 bam. So that, I think for me, it was much more of that concentration, stick to the guy's bumper in front of you and just nail perfect laps every lap. So, it's a different style race, but, I like it. The chicane, that last chicane was nowhere near as evil as Thruxton. So it was downright pleasant to zip through there every lap. Thruxton was such, Thruxton, that was my worst race ever last week. So I still am having nightmares about Thruxton for last week. So you can guess whether I might return Thruxton to the schedule next season.
Yeah, I will take it that may be a one-off here from the Formula Vee weekend race. I gotta say that race was pretty good, but that final chicane, I really wish that iRacing put in like an alternative lad so you could just skip it. I mean, granted, hang off into turn number 1, you'd probably get yourself killed, considering most of these cars would feel like you'd be going Mach 5 into there. But still, kind of wish that final chicane was taken out of that track.
Well,
still a nice
there's
one.
very good odds that the Fords tomorrow will be in the rain here at Donington. A lot of the officials during the week have been rainy, and it's nowhere near as bad as Thruxton. It's very slow. A couple of the apexes have small puddles, but the shoulders are nowhere near as evil as some of those green monsters at Thruxton last week, where it just shot you off across the field. So I think pretty good odds we're going to have a rainy. So the V's we're going to Sebring Club. Not one of my favorites, but a certain Michelle Lynn loves it, so that's how I got it on the schedule. So anyways, that's where we'll be next week, and pretty good odds we'll be slopping around in the rain tomorrow.
I don't think that was very good news for our producer Josh, who is hopefully going to be out on track tomorrow.
I don't mind the rain, but I wasn't planning on it, so I guess we'll see how it goes. I do enjoy the rain, when it's good, but I've never had any rain experience around here. I have very little practice this week under my belt, so I'm a little nervous going into Donington with some rain. But hopefully I'll be up early enough in the morning to be there.
Yep. Yeah, it was a good show.
Yeah, it was a very, very good race yet again here from the series, Jim. I gotta say, you do a fantastic job behind the scenes making all of this from the Formula Vee weekend.
Yeah, we're still going. In a few weeks, we'll be going to Codwell for the first time with the V's.
Ooh, that'll be great.
So that'll be really excellent. Yeah, I think it'll be excellent. I think the V's
love that place
track really well.
Yeah,
and I think that'll make for a good race. Other than that, we're going to some old standards. We got some at Point coming up, a couple of the old favorites, but Cadwell's coming up, and that'll be exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, cool schedule of races.
We missed Tor today again, so I don't know if Tor is just trying to give Jason a head start on this, or whatever, or if he has his 3 drops very specifically planned. Because I think pretty sure he was aiming to fight Jason for the title. So I think maybe he just knows he has 3 drops and he has them, planned very specifically.
Potentially could be Tolo doing a little bit of mind games and giving Jason Green what I like to call 5 feet of hope. So who knows? Who knows what things are going to be looking like for the rest of the season?
Well, you see these new guys, Ethan and Chris Dowden. They're just running shambles over the S2, but they're also giving that front pack a real headache.
I gotta say, very nice to see the interclass mingling at the front of the field. It's always good to see, and only in the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors really do you have that week after week. So this series is absolutely awesome.
Our favorite Master Alien is in the front always. York is up in front no matter what kind of car he's in.
I think you may have to enforce like some sort of like weight limit regulation for his car or something like that. Just slap on an extra 500 pounds, make it feel like his car's powered with milk or something like that. But who knows? Maybe some chicanery between now and the end of the season. Nerf him a little bit.
Last night through the end of the night, Michelle goes, "My car's bogging." I said, "Yeah, you're in a Formula Vee, and that's called a hill."
Oh boy, I gotta say, gotta share a story of me driving around the roads of the city of Philadelphia in a, at most, probably about 95 horsepower 1985 Oldsmobile Cutlass. That thing can barely get up some of the hills around here. So in a Formula Vee, it feels like I'm driving on the roads, except with some better drivers than we've got hanging around the roads in the city of Philadelphia. Doubly so, considering the Eagles are actually doing well this season. But Chip, thank you for joining us in the commentary booth, and always good to have a chat with you, man.
Hi, Tam. I missed Tuesday night, and I was looking forward to visiting with her a little bit. So hopefully this Tuesday night, and thanks for everything you guys do. Thanks to our anonymous sponsor this week, and we'll see you guys next week.
That we absolutely will, Jim. Thank you very much for joining us in the commentary booth. Always fun to have a chat with you.
See you next week.
And that right there was Jim Brewster. Always a colorful interview to wrap up these broadcasts. But Josh, speaking of color, that was a colorful race with a lot of battling all throughout the field. But Sebring in 1 week's time, very good that we're not behind the wheel, because just thinking about that race, my arms are like made out of jello. They feel like they're made out of jello, at least, just thinking about the bumps heading through there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sebring, one of my favoriteest tracks of all time. I love that place. Somebody asked me once if there was one track I would drive forever if I could pick one. And, it's between Nürburgring and Sebring. And mainly because Sebring almost has as much character as 100 and some odd turns that are at Nürburgring. I absolutely love that place. Club layout's not something I'm super duper familiar with, but I'm excited to see how that one's going to race. And yeah, those famous corners and stuff will be rearing their head next week, so looking forward to it, Ron. And great race today, and thanks to everybody. Thanks to our anonymous sponsor out there. Couldn't do it without you, Jim Brewster, everyone else, in the background, and you yourself, Ron. Thanks so much for everything, and we'll see you next week, Ron. Wrap her up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up and talk about some of the stuff that we've got coming up here on Slow Motion Broadcasting, because have it be known, folks, the racing action simply does not stop. We're getting to the point in the not-too-distant future where we'll have racing pretty much every single day here on SMB, which is certainly good, giving us some work here in the commentary booth and giving us a lot of racing action to talk about, because it is absolutely fantastic here on SMB. Good time to subscribe for certain. We've got Wildcard Wednesdays with the Ray Esports Club Racing League and the Sim Racers Group Intermediate F4 Championship. You can catch that action every single Wednesday here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. The Ray Esports Club Series going to have some action to talk about as well this upcoming weekend with the Weekend Warriors. Of course, you got here with the Formula Vee Weekend Warriors every single Saturday at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then for Super Sunday here on SMB, we've got the action from the Ray Esports Club, not the Ray Esports Club Racing League, the Ray Esports Formula Ford and Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors Series. The Formula Ford is running at on Sundays at 12:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the Spec Racer Ford is running at 2:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's not all for the action that we've got coming up here on SMB, because we've got the return of an old friend, shall we say. Part of the reason why Slow Motion Broadcasting used to have the following that it did, and still has even more of a following than it ever has, is because of one specific series, that being the American Muscle Series, which is going to be returning. You get some fantastic Mustang action. The old Mustang here on iRacing, round number 1 of that season, going to be coming at you really quick at Brands Hatch this upcoming Tuesday. And there's some more stuff coming up the pipe with the return of XSLR in not this month, but the month after, that being February. But a lot of stuff to look forward to here on SMB. Gives you more reason to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of the racing action. But as for the action from tonight's broadcast, I think that will just about do it. And so for myself, Ron Maunz, Josh Wilkie joining me, working the comms and the cams with me on today's broadcast, and all of you tuning in, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future. season 1 of 2025. Let's see what sort of adventures that it has in store. And pace cars way through the corner. That wasn't the crest doing him dirty.
There right off the beginning. It's something you probably want to monopolize on right away, honestly, in a rain race.
Involved in that as well. Godin, I believe, is a newer racer. Oh, that's a big crash coming out of the corner. Renaissance mentioning all of those racers. That way through the field. We saw him have that off-track moment not terribly long ago, and he has come back from a... And oh my god, that's a big wreck coming out of turn number 4. Multiple cars around, a little bit of contact going to Chris Montgomery as well. I saw that car kind of jerk around a little bit through that corner, but you can see Montgomery maybe got to size up a move on Colacio, as Colacio may try and get a move on him. That is 5-6 cars covered by just about nothing on this racetrack. Nearly 4 wide through the corner. Look at Colacio going in way deep into turn 5. He's got to lose out on that spot on Chris Montgomery and maybe Colacio. Too low contact being... Weekly Formula Vee Weekend Warriors crash him up wreckfest at the checkered flag. May God have mercy on both Josh and I's graphics cards because the event does.